Hello everyone, welcome to my video. Today I'm going to be teaching you about conditionals. As we all learned that maybe most of you know that there are four types of conditional sentences. They are type 0, type 1, type 2, and type 3. Okay, so in this lesson I will mainly teach you the first two conditionals. That is the type 0 and type 1 conditionals, and mainly I will be teaching you the differences between type 0 and type 1. Okay, now are you ready? Now let's get started. Okay, so let me do some revision first. When we learned about conditional sentences, here is the basic structure. Okay, there are two parts, okay, for the conditional sentences. The one part is called if clause, the other part is called the main clause. Okay, so as you can see that whenever you see the word if, okay, this clause must be the if clause. Okay, so if it rains tomorrow, usually if the if clause is put in the beginning of the sentence, we need to put a comma, okay, after the if clause. So for example, if it rains tomorrow, comma, we will not come. This sentence, we will not come, is the main clause here. Okay, so we have if clause and the main clause. Just a quick revision, okay, just to remind you there are two parts in a conditional. So let's talk about type 0 conditional sentence. When do we use type 0 conditional sentence? We use type 0 when we want to talk about the universal truth, or things that are always true or mostly true, okay, or facts if you would like to call it. Okay, as we all learned that type 0 for the if clause, okay, and this is the main clause. Okay, we use present tenses, okay, for both clauses. All right, so let's give you some more examples. If you heat water to 100 Celsius degrees, comma, it boils. Okay, so if you heat water to 100 Celsius degrees, heat is a present tense. It boils is also a present tense. Okay, I would like you to pay attention to the he, she, it. Okay, whenever we use present tense, okay, he, she, it, the verb should be followed with an s or es. Okay, so please pay attention to that. Okay, there is another way of saying when we use the if conditional sentence. We can also put it the other way around. Okay, for example, this one, if you heat water to 100 Celsius degrees, comma, it boils. Okay, we can also put this main clause in the beginning of the sentence, so it goes like this. Okay, we can also express it in this way too. It boils if you heat water to 100 Celsius degrees. Okay, full stop. Notice that there is no comma in between the two clauses. Okay, only the full stop at the end of the sentence, like any other normal sentences. Okay, so this is another way of expressing the if conditional sentences. Okay, more examples. If you pour oil into water, comma, it flows, full stop. Okay, another way of saying it is if we put it in the other way around, if we use the main clause as the beginning of the sentence, we can say it flows. Okay, if you pour oil into water. Okay, so this is another way of saying it, saying the same thing with the same meaning. Okay, except just the punctuation and the capital letters are different. Okay, so please pay attention to that. And also I would also like you to pay attention to whenever the sentence is present tense, he, she, it, we use s or es. If the word, sometimes the verb end with s, sh, or o, we need to put es, like he goes, she goes, it goes. Okay, So make sure you add s or es at the end of the main verb. Okay, if that clause is present tense, and if the main verb is followed by the third singular pronoun like he, she, it. Okay, so please pay special attention to this point. Type 1. When do we use type 1? We use type 1 when we talk about a present or future probable case. Pay attention to this word, probable. Probable, that means it may happen, it may not happen. Okay, possibility, possible case, probable case. Okay, for type 1, the tense is a bit different, okay, comparing to type 0. For if clause, okay, the tense is present tense. Main clause, we use future tense. Okay, pay attention to that. So here is an example. If I feel sick, pay attention to if, or the if clause we use present tense. Okay, so I suggest you, if you are going to be doing some exercises, okay, we are going to have some exercises for you to trial as well. So I suggest you try to do the if clause first. Okay, so because for now, for type 0 and type 1, we always use present tense for type 0 and type 1 for the if clauses. So if I feel sick, present tense, I will not go to school. This is future tense. Okay, so maybe I will go to school, maybe I will not go to school when I'm sick. Okay, so it depends on how sick you are. Sometimes if you are very sick that you can't even get out of bed, of course you will not go to school. But if you just feeling a little bit of headache, just tiny bit, okay, maybe you can still go to school. So this is the case that in this case we can use type 1, okay, to talk about the probable case. I may go to school, I may not go to school when I'm sick or if I'm sick. Okay, this is what I mean. Another example, if it rains tomorrow, again, he, she, it, the main verb need to add s or es. Okay, it depends on what that main verb is. Okay, but you need to pay special attention. Add s or es. If it rains tomorrow, okay, pay attention to the comma when the word if, okay, is started in the very beginning of the sentence. If it rains tomorrow, comma, the match will be cancelled. It's also a probable case, okay, because the match will be cancelled or the match will not be cancelled. There are two possibilities. Okay, so it depends on the rain. If the rain is very heavy, then of course the match will be most likely will be cancelled. Okay, but if the rain is just a few drizzle, then maybe, that means not heavy rain, maybe the match will not be cancelled. Okay, so there is a probability here, a probable case here. The match may or will cancel, may cancel or may not cancel. In this case, we should use type 1. Okay. What if I want you to use the main clause? This is the main clause. Okay, if I want you to put this main clause in the very beginning, what would you do? Then you will say, you put this as the upper you change it to any beginning of the sentence, we use uppercase for the first letter, right? The match will be cancelled if, okay, if it rains tomorrow, full stop. Okay, if you put it that way. All right, so just I'm sure you know it, but I'm just trying to remind you. Same for this one. You can use this main clause. If you want to put the main clause in the beginning of the sentence, you can say, I will not go to school if I feel sick, full stop. Okay, this is there are actually two ways of saying the if conditional sentences. Okay, next slide. So this is just a summary, tells you the difference between type 0 and type 1. So what is the main difference between type 0 and type 1? The first difference is type 0, we talk about when we want to talk about the facts, then we use type 0. But if we want to talk about something that will possibly happen now or will possibly happen in the future, okay, then we use type 0. That means something may happen or may not happen, okay, then we use conditional 1. About the tenses, pay attention to the tenses for the two clauses, for the if clause and the main clause. The tense for type 0, we use present tense for both cases. It's very easy to remember. Okay, so in the example, if you don't water a plant, present tense, comma, okay, it dies, present tense again. But for type 1, when we want to talk about a possible case, okay, for the if clause, we use present tense. But for the main clause, we use future tense, okay? So here is an example. If it rains, remember, present tense, he, she, it, the main verb need to add s or es and plus the comma. We will stay at home, okay? So here is the two difference, okay? Type 0 talk about facts, if clause, both the if clause and the main clause we use present tense. For type 1, when we want to talk about something that may happen or may not happen now or may not happen in the future, then we use type 1. The tenses for if clause, we use present tense. For the main clause, we use future tense. Okay, so remember this summary. Okay, I think I'm going to remove, shall I remove all those so that you can have a clearer view about the summary. So that's better, it's clearer. Okay, so that's the main difference between type 0 and type 1. This table, okay, for the differences between type 1 and type 0. Okay, that's all for now. Goodbye, have a nice day. Oh, wow, I didn't know that the PowerPoint, okay, it will show you the answer. It's not a very good way, but it looks a bit different to my PowerPoint. But anyway, I hope you can read it. So I've given you the example. Usually in the PowerPoint, I won't give you the answer, but you are lucky. So I suggest you in the exam, you always try to do the if clause first, okay? So because if clause we use present tense, right? So if he, she, it, the main verb get, we need to add s. Okay, if he gets a job, he will buy a car. Okay, he may buy a car, he may not buy a car if he has a job or if he gets a job. Okay, only possible it may happen. Same for me. If I found a job, if I get a job, I may buy a car or I may not buy a car. Okay, it depends on how far away I live from my work. So it's only possible. So we use type 1. Okay, so T1 for type 1. If you come, you miss the show. Okay, if you do not come, you will miss the show. Again, type 1, or maybe it can be type 0 as well. Okay, so it depends. If you don't come, you will surely miss the, actually if you do not come, then you miss the show. Okay, oh, this is number 3. Okay, Mary get a toothache if she eats too many sweets. Again, try to do the if clause first because we need to use present tense. If he, she eat, it, we need to add s or es. For this case, we only need to add s at the end of the verb eat. If she eats too many sweets, both case is correct. Mary gets, it should be get, okay. Mary gets a toothache. Or you can say Mary will get a toothache. It depends on too many sweets. What is too many sweets? Usually gets is more correct, okay? Because if you eat too many, it's almost certain that you will have a toothache. Of course, it depends on how long you have been eating too many sweets. If you've been eating too many sweets for more than 1 year, then it's always true. So this is type 0. But if you have been eating too many sweets for just 1 or 2 days or even a week, then you will type 1. Okay, so because we are not sure about the period, the number of days that Mary has been eating too many sweets. Okay, so we will give this sentence a benefit of doubt. Okay, so in this case both tenses are correct. It depends on how many days. Okay, so if you've been eating too many sweets for just 1 day, then you will get a toothache. Okay, or even 1 week you will get a toothache. Only possible. But if you've been eating too many sweets for more than a year or 2 years or even 10 years, then it will become a fact. You get a toothache, or Mary gets a toothache, okay, after 10 years of eating too many sweets. Okay, so I hope you know the main difference between type 0 and type 1. Sometimes we might have some embarrassing case like this one. It doesn't tell me how many days she's been eating too many sweets. So sometimes we will have 2 acceptable answers as well. Okay, so remember. Okay, so this is the end of my sharing. Okay, so in my next video I will introduce the third conditional, which is conditional 2, to you all. Okay, so that's all for now.